Hello, I'm Leroy Garcia, and this is Blue Rain Gallery Podcast. Today we're in the studio here at the gallery with another special guest, and Spooner Marcus, who has joined the stable of Blue Rain Gallery artists. What's special about Spooner is he's participated in a movement that, say, me and Preston and maybe a few of the others, Tony Hola, and a few of those other artists started a glass movement in the native communities. And Spooner's continuing in that process. So we want to introduce you. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
We'd like to know a little bit more about you, Spooner. Let us know where you're from, how you got your start into art or glass itself.
All right. So, I guess I could make a short story long or a long story short, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm from Okewinge. And so that's only like 30 minutes north of here in Santa Fe. And I grew up there. I've been there, all my life. I'm still living there. And glass kind of happened, I wasn't looking to be a glass blower. I had just graduated high school, and I went on a trip to Australia and did some anthropology, archaeology stuff with this group. And I got back and my mom goes, you need to do something, and she goes, you should look at this. And she pointed at the thrifty nickel, and she goes, you should go check that out. And as glassblower, glassblower wanted, no experience needed. I go, okay, sir. So it was in downtown Española, right across from the Sun paper and the rail yard there.
Yeah.
And this guy had built a little hot shop in an old general store. It was like an old general store. So that was kind of neat that it was had some history behind it, the building and the house that he was living in, Anyhow, he put this place, this was called Glass Improvement. And so, I got my start there. I started, blowing glass, and it took off pretty quick. Went in and looked at the equipment, and I was like, whoa, this is, it's kind of mind blowing. And I'm like, dang, this is cool. And he had built all of his own equipment. So there was the annealer that we were using was an old 50s refrigerator, just lined with fracks and stuff. So it was up on stilts. It was kind of crazy.
Typical northern New Mexico.
Yeah. Well, this guy, he had just graduated from RISD and Mike Warren. And started I don't know, I think the story goes is he was driving through town and he broke down and decided this was it. That's the typical New Mexico story, right?
That's
so
nice.
anyhow, he started this little shop, and I got my start there, and all we made was juice cups. So basically, it was a production line, and we would basically just blow a blank cup. We wouldn't even open it up, and then we'd put it, anneal it, take it out of the annealer, do what's called a hot pop on it, and then pop the top off, and then grind the top and put it through an acid bath to frost it. And that was it. It was just production.
Just quick.
Yeah. So
but that probably taught you all the caffeine, all that turning.
Right.
Stuff, right?
Well, I took to it pretty quick. I realized that I was good at it, right? And over the years, I kind of realized there was a little bit more to why I kept doing it, but that's, maybe later on in the story. But so I started there, and that was in 93. And so I worked there for a few years. And then he decided, got married, divorced. She took the shop, you know how that goes. So let's see, I didn't blow glass for about 4 years in between that job. And then when I found Taos Glass Arts, that's when I started realizing the potential for making art. In that time that I didn't blow glass, I was thinking, oh man, I could make pottery shapes out of this stuff. And, and then somebody sent me a little newspaper clipping from I don't know, it was the Taos News, or I don't know, something, but it had an article on Taos Glass Arts. And so, I went to go investigate that. And, I walked into the shop and I saw Tony making pieces that I had been thinking about for
Tony Jojola?
Yeah, Tony Jojola, yeah. And so, he was making exactly what I was thinking about. I was like, what the heck is this? And I was like, you're from Isleta? Whoa, cool. Yeah, no, I
I
stayed
think
there.
that was a shop started and funded by Dale Chihuly.
Yeah. So yeah, Taos Glass Arts was, I think it was Chihuly had given a few furnaces or a couple furnaces to Tony to work out of. And I guess originally it was going to be on the Pueblo, but of course, things changed on the Pueblo and all of that stuff. So it ended up just being, it was at the Taos Economic Development Center. And Chihuly had his finger in it. And he would come visit, And at that time, of course, I didn't know.
You didn't know who it is?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about anything.
This big guy with the patch.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, like I didn't really pay attention to art. I mean, as much as I loved making things, art wasn't really what I was like focused on. It was the act of doing it that really I was in love with. And even to this day, it's still kind of the same thing. I'm really drawn to the act of blowing glass. So anyhow, yeah. So those years over at Taos Glass Arts, I think I spent like 4 or 5 years over at Taos and, working with Ira, my buddy Ira Lujan, and Alex Abazian. He runs a shop out in Oakland. And of course, there was a whole revolving cast of characters, and we met Chihuly. And then, I slowly became aware of Preston, and just kind of looking at the native glass scene.
I remember you and Ira coming in and checking us out, checking out Preston stuff, a couple of his shows back then.
Way back in the day, yeah. So there was Taos Glass Arts, and that took me through about 2005 or so. And then so once that shut down, I kind of I had found a place here in Santa Fe to blow glass, and that's over at Liquid Light at LED shop,
LD Homes,
and me and my buddy Alex, he was renting time over there. So I found that shop, and then they told me about Prairie Dog Glass, which was just getting built at that point in time. So that's basically where I've been blowing glass since then. So I've been there for 20 years now. Wow.
Well, I've seen your work evolve and stuff. It's become better and better, more refined. And sometimes it takes a journey and time to practice.
Yeah.
To get there. We set out a few examples on the desk here and in the background of a few different styles. You have a couple bowls, very traditional wedding vase. One thing that occurs to me is you like to use frit a lot, and it seems like you're pre-designing the frit and then rolling on it. What's your process? Tell me how you're doing that.
Okay, so this goes back to my fascination with glass as a thing that I like, is because there's different techniques. I get involved in all these, there's different things you can do to the glass to have an effect. And so I like to experiment with things a lot. So what I'm doing with what you see on this type of design, it's basically a printing process. So I'll go and it involves found art or found object kind of stuff. So I'll go scrap old metal stuff, go to the junkyard, or I'll go to Savers or something. Go to the lost and found. I'll go to antique stores, and I look for pieces of metal that I can use as a print, right? So, if you're looking at some of these objects like the X on this, if you look at the X on there, that's a bit for a jackhammer, right? And I smash it into So while the bubble is still, being formed, I would take my prints, or, I take my pieces of metal and press the glass onto them. It makes a little recess. And then what I do is I dust.
You fill it in.
Yeah, fill it in with the dust. Yeah. Well, usually that's powders, because it's a fine thing. So that's what I've been doing lately, because it's a quick effect. And I like it because it's very painterly, it's very in the moment, and it has a tendency to that's what I think about glasses. When you're creating this piece, you're trapping time, you're trapping that moment in time. And if you can do it right, you get this presence from it. And I feel like I can really get some kind of abstract, kind of painterly feel. It's very spontaneous, and I like all those qualities.
And yet you're so able to maintain your sense of native heritage and through your work, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when I first saw this, I'm like, well, that's a cactus, but is it a cactus or is it a bud?
Cactus, barrel cactus. Well, a big focus like lately, over the years, glass, is fun. It's art, but it's also a job, and you got to have hobbies, right? You got to keep your mind kind of going. So, right before the pandemic hit, I think I stumbled on this YouTube channel, and I just kind of went down this wormhole with botany. And so I'm really involved with plants. I'm studying the names of plants, different names of plants. And it's fascinating to me because it's a big, it has to do with ecology and habitat and all of that kind of stuff and things that growing up where I did on the reservation, you notice when something disappears. You know what I mean? You don't really notice when you're out here, in a city or anything. You don't notice really if that lot over there, gets bulldozed and
sometimes you pass by, you're like, where did that building go?
Right. But then if you see part of nature just get bulldozed and then it turns into something else, you go, oh, okay. Yeah. But then to realize that, how important that little, abandoned lot is for so many other things, that ecosystem to me is really important. So that's what I've tried to be carrying that into my art, the cactus, for instance. I've been making some peyote buttons lately, and not only is it something that tribes and people use for medicine, but it's also a plant that needs to be conserved, and the habitat is disappearing, and so it's a critical thing that we, especially for Native American people that use it for medicine, it's a critical point of focus for me.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like these cactus are a little bit more amorphic in nature, how you're producing them, because they're not perfectly symmetrical, and
right.
One leans right, one leans left.
Right, and that's part of the aesthetic. I mean, when you're creating, people draw a lot of inspiration from nature, and I've always tried to. When you're doing glass art, a lot of glass people are very into having something perfect, right? And so, when you start recreating nature isn't perfect at all. So, right. You get a little bit more leeway as far as that type of thing.
You can be amorphic. The other thing that I've noticed is that, and I'll tell you a story, and you'll relate to this, but the first time I took Tammy to Preston's studio to blow glass as a collaborative, the first time I took Jody Naranjo to the studio in Harlan, Riano, it was the same when we went to the glass shop to look for colors. And these people have lived in a monochromatic scale and as potters for most of their lives. Right. And so all of a sudden, when you take them to the glass shop to shop for cane or whatever, for it's the rainbow. And they're just, their eyes just open up. Yeah. And it's just an amazing feeling. But I like your use of colors. And has that evolved too? Right.
Yeah. I mean, with this style of work, I think of it, like I said, kind of like painting. So I'm layering color on top of each other, and trying to get some depth in there, especially with the mica, and these pieces a lot of them are pretty thick and heavy, but that's kind of intentional because you want to see that depth in there. So yeah, color, well, for a long time, I was focused on making it look like pottery. And for a long time, people would come up and say, oh, wow, that's glass. And I'm like, yeah, that's glass. Yeah, it's all glass. But lately, I've been really trying to use what I've gained as far as knowledge is, I didn't go to school for art or anything. So it was a kind of slow process, slower than what, a lot of artists, go through. But finally, I realized wow, for a long time I would use opaque colors. Then I go, oh, wow, it really does look good when it catches light, know? And so, yeah, just using all those little things to build on, to create a piece, it's fun.
I mean, you even captured in this wedding vase, a mica feel and the deep underbelly of it. You know, that's pretty cool stuff. And,
Yeah, the mica was a fun process of discovery too. Like that was one of the experiments. Like I was like, what can I put in the glass? And I go, oh man, let's try mica, you know?
so that's real mica.
Yeah.
Oh,
It is.
okay,
It
good.
is real mica. It's
my gosh.
micaceous glass. So
Yeah.
you usually
Makes
can't
sense.
you can't introduce foreign things into the glass normally, but
It'll
like
crack.
yeah. But through experimentation, I found I could get away with it, and then I think I was at the Met in New York or something, and I saw this these old German marbles or something. They were using mica in it. I was like, oh, okay, so this is something that people do, But I think it has to do, like when glass is cooling, it shrinks by almost 1%, right? So anything that gets in the way of it shrinking evenly is going to make it crack.
Well, that you also have sometimes colors don't go together, right? Because it can create that tension. Because sometimes they don't shrink as fast as another color.
Oh yeah,
so you can
absolutely.
get cracks.
Incompatibility. Yeah, it's always I have this one color I keep going back to because it's a like what do they call it? Alabaster. It's like a off white or semi-transparent white. But man, it's just incompatible. I don't know why they keep even making it. What are they doing? I don't know.
Maybe if you made it with just that,
Yeah, right.
That'd be one thing. The other thing is about glass that I noticed is you get used to losing pieces, cracking. In the experimentation.
Right.
And people are like, oh, it cracked. Well, glass artists are usually used to that process.
Right. You have to have a very zen kind of attitude when you're doing glasswork because, I've seen people, throwing pipes across the room that get so mad. And, it's like, you just got to chill out. I mean, you're going to lose pieces.
Part of the process.
It is.
So tell me about this style because this almost looks like it's sandblasted.
So it is a sandblasted piece. So, what we see here is layers of color. So a lot of the time when you see this style, you're looking at an color underneath. Usually I'll go for something bright and brilliant, a primary color. I'm a little bit colorblind, so I sometimes go too much probably. So I'll put a color under, and then we have on the outside a powdered color. And then, so I put a thin layer of powder on the outside of the piece. And when it comes out of the kiln, it's all black with red on the inside.
Shiny black.
Yeah, you get that shiny. If you notice, right in there, you can see the detail. It's kind of like black on black. But and then I go back and stencil it and sandblast it. And this process too, like I said, I wasn't taught. I mean, looking at Preston work, I became aware of the fact that I could do it, but I had to teach myself how to do it. Yeah. And so it's kind of a reverse process as far as what Preston does, because Preston's putting mask all over the piece, and then he cuts his design away and sandblasts in
the negative space.
The negative space where I'm keeping, I'm stenciling with, I came up with a catalog of designs that I digitally. And I've thought about this too, is I'm marrying a lot of these designs are digital images on an analog, piece. So to make it look right, it's kind of tricky. And I don't, so I stencil it, sandblast it. And then, to do different layers, I carve it first, and then I peel the mask back, and then I stencil it again, and then I frost it. So it's a 2-stage process. And so,
you learned to blast through different types of layers you still kept the original shiny black, and then process it into the black a little bit without going into the red.
Right.
But it's probably a reverse process. You probably blasted through the black to get to the red first, and then the black.
Right, and then lift that. Yeah. So stages. Yeah.
Yeah. So where do you see yourself going in the next 20 years as far as this?
Well, definitely, I'm going to keep blowing glass. I know that. Like I said, production has been part of my life for a long time. And with glass is one of those mediums where it's a necessary thing to do production work. Because it's such an expensive thing to keep going. It's just kind of how the game works with glass. But focusing on art, I mean, is really where I'm at right now, because I'm on the solstice this in just a few days, I'm going to hit the big 5-0.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know, right? And so yeah, it makes me, getting older just kind of makes me think about what I want to make and what what my subject matter is and what I want to push as far as like, awareness. Cause art for me, it's not just something pretty. Art is a statement, that's what it really is meant to be is something that is personal and you're sharing it with everybody.
Well, I see you as a person still growing and developing and refining. And I really like what I see and very proud of you and your journey.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for coming in today for our little interview here. Mm-hmm. Like to encourage everybody to watch our podcast on any platforms they want to subscribe to. If you don't want to subscribe, you can always go to blueraingallery.com under the menu bar podcast. Also like to encourage you to go to our online store and bring art into your everyday life, bluerainprintshop.com. Thank you.
Cheers.